So, hello everybody. It's great to have you today. We are very happy to be meeting with Martin Chamorro. Hello, Martin. How are you?
Hey, Philippe, I'm great. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Very happy to be able to have you on today. Been looking forward to that for a long time. If you
Yeah.
don't know Martin Chamorro, Martin Chamorro is an experienced translator. He's a trainer as well, a networker. He's in Argentina, close to Buenos Aires, and he's been helping people and teaching at conferences for a long time. And so, if you're not following him, I think you should have a look at what he's doing. And when it comes to translation, AI, and anything that you need in translation, he's a go-to person. So very happy to have him and be able to tap into his experience, his interactions, and so I'm really happy that you're here, Martin. uh, really glad.
Thank you so
And
much, Philippe.
yeah,
I'm really excited too. I'm really excited and looking forward to this conversation. And yeah, we've been speaking about meeting today for a long time, so
yeah,
it's great that we are finally doing it.
it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. So we have been looking at many topics because there's so much to talk about. So what we decided to talk about today, well, we'll be looking at three things mainly. Okay, so we'll talk about what has happened, how things have evolved since 2023 until now. And when you think about it, it's not that long ago, only 3 years. Wow, that's crazy. And after
What's
that,
happening?
we'll discuss how tech savvy one needs to be able to interact effectively with AI tools. And lastly, we'll discuss if it's possible to run AI locally on your own computer so that you don't have to rely on discussing or well, chatting with AI or having it work from a remote location so that you own your own data and everything happens locally so you're in control, and the data stays private. So we'll discuss that as well, but we'll try to keep things as easily to grasp as possible. And we're really happy that you're here for the ride. And we'll start talking about that right now.
Oh, I didn't know that. No lo sabía. Oh, je ne savais pas.
So, one topic we thought, well, that'd be nice to talk about that is what has changed since 2023. So, we mean by that when AI came into um, the hands of anybody who wanted to use it. So that was the release of ChatGPT 3.5. And so for the translation world and also for other situations, what has changed? So what did you see change, Martin?
I have one word per year.
Oh,
Let me know what you think.
sounds good.
One or more words, but I tried to summarize. For example, 2023 was mistrust and everything related to that, alarm,
Sure.
fear, and so on. Then 2024 started to spark some curiosity, and more people started to to try the models and the chats and so on.
Mm.
Then 2025, I have a really specific word for. Can you guess what it could be? Well, you have uh, also been using stuff in 2025, but one very recurrent term that has been everywhere regarding language models. What do you think? What do you say, Philippe?
2025.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be thinking agents.
Before that, it's a more primitive way concept.
Okay. More primitive.
1 hour later.
All right, I won't keep you
Yeah.
waiting. I would
All
say
right.
for
Go ahead.
2025, hallucination.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember those crazy videos that were like a dream or something like that? And it was like
Yeah.
everything was very weird, and of course, in terms of language too. Then 2026, to me at least, and to the colleagues that I've been speaking with, I would summarize it so far with the word experimentation, because now
Yeah.
is when everyone's starting to, see what they can do and so on. How would you say the landscape has evolved since 2023, Philippe?
Yeah. Um, that's very interesting to look at that. I'd say at the beginning, uh, things were interesting but very unreliable. Um, you you couldn't really get very good quality. Um, that was a bit difficult. You probably had also some technical problems, and it was very limited. As time went by, um, more and more power have been given to these tools, so they have gotten better. Um, so if you have an idea and there's something that you want to do with them, as time went by, the possibilities have increased. If you decide to do something, and we see that, for example, with people that, let's say, use Canva, and they want to do something, a presentation or something like that, have a bit of art in it. And as time went on, well, we've seen that with AI and making the user experience as easy as possible, well, then you can get something done pretty quickly, and get a result that you would say is good enough. Now, if you want to do these things professionally, that's something different. I'm saying, let's say you're a hobbyist, for example, you want to do something like that, and you see that you couldn't even think about it in the beginning because it was just the technology hadn't been connected to different things. It wasn't mature, and now you have different models for different things, and they can do various things. So you get that, and then if you look into very specific and specialized work, like for example translation, in the beginning, the amount of which could be done reliably with AI was very small. Uh, Now we see more and more people using it in translation, and you see that for some applications, well, there are some segments that you can say, well, okay, uh, that's good enough. If you don't need a very specific style, well, that can be acceptable. Quality has gotten there. So yeah, I've noticed that. Now, in terms of acceptation, that's a different story. Uh, but yeah, so that's a bit, my experience as a user.
Yeah.
That's the way I felt about it.
Yeah. And while you were commenting on this, I was thinking, I personally usually get the impression that image and video generation models evolve more rapidly and in more compelling ways than language models. But now I'm
Mm.
thinking, is it because I'm not exploring too much the alternatives and the possibilities? because at the beginning it was like, well, the language model was there to generate stuff, but now we have different layers and different levels of reasoning and so on. Would you say that evolution has been more or less um, parallel, or there is more evolution, for example, on the multimedia side than on the language model side?
Yeah. Um, there's, I believe, and that would be the way I'd think about it, that there are two things involved in that. And one aspect would be specialization, So if you decide, I'm going to work on uh, picture generation, okay, image generation. And so you have all the team of AI developers that's working only on that. And year after year, well, they can get a better product. And now AI is evolving so fast that it's not year after year; it will be like quarter after quarter, for example, or
Yeah, or sooner.
bi-monthly or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see these models getting better, and you see quite a big difference. A big video that people think about is Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yeah, the
Uh,
famous one. That was a good case.
yeah, and last year I played with video generation from Canva, and I made a video where I used it. And that was already quite good. There were some things that weren't right or that uh, don't agree with reality, but the video quality was very impressive. And now it's getting better, but that's extremely specialized. Now, if
Yeah.
you're looking at an LLM is expected to be a do-it-all, so and that's a difficult task, and it doesn't work exactly the same way because that's a model that's based on text because it's going to be able to talk with you, so it's going to do natural language processing, but you can ask it many things. You're going to ask it sometimes math problems. Sure, many kids or many parents would be looking into that. Or you can ask it to make a picture, but it can't make a picture. So the company making the large language model will connect an image generation model, and they will talk to each other. So that adds a level of friction because your language model that you were talking with will now process your prompt, change it into another prompt, feed that prompt into the image generation model, and then you wait and you get back the image and you get your picture that you've asked for. And these are the steps involved, and that's a lot more complicated. So you have these layers that are added to these big general models, and we are expecting things from them, but you have the text base in them,
Yeah.
but that's not only that. So that's why I think the developers of these models, the big names, so ChatGPT, Gemini, all that, they've been working into improving the access to external resources, to
Yeah.
tools, but the exchange text-wise has progressed, but not so dramatically. And I believe that's because it's not specialized to doing text or doing only translation. But if you look at a model, for example, like what Lara is from Translated, so they have a model that is an AI model, but it's to be used as machine translation that is also an AI. So it's specialized for translation, and it is very good. I've been testing it, and I've worked with it this past week actually, and I was impressed. For a small text that was less than 300 words, I've compared some small. Oh, so I did a test where I translated a small amount of text, so about less than 300 words, and see how it went. And where some other models, the big ones, would do between um, 15 and 30 seconds to translate the whole thing. A model that is highly specialized and that is not known by everybody, so ChatGPT would be known by everybody. And the model I use, which is Lara, Lara,
Thank
which is
you.
specialized for translation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that one, yeah, that one took 4 seconds. And
Oh, I
yeah,
thought you were going to
and
say more time. Actually, it was actually faster
yeah, yeah, because
and
it's
more
specialized.
efficient. Hmm.
Yeah, and the quality was better.
Oh,
So yeah, so I haven't tested all language pairs and all that, but
yeah, yeah,
for what I was looking at, quality was better. And I believe it's because of specialization, so you're using something that is highly specialized and you get a specialized result, so that, you expect something better out of it. So I think that's because of that, the reason why we see things evolve at different pace.
yeah.
That's because some things are highly specialized and some others less.
So we went from a do-it-all and encompass it all solution to highly specialized models that can do more specific stuff more efficiently, right?
That's right.
And I wanted to ask you something. For example, when you said specialized, the specialization was not a specific field or topic, but translation, right? So that means that in this case, the specialization means going from a general language model into a translation model, right? I don't know if everyone's
Yeah,
aware of that
specialized in
difference.
specialized in the action, what you are expecting it
Oh,
to do,
okay.
more than the field of activities.
Mm-hmm.
So um, and then again, I imagine if you had a company that said, okay, I'm going to do, and that exists, for example, for legal. You have people that are making, AI language models that are specialized in the legal terminology and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So if they are highly specialized, you'd expect, I haven't tested them, but you'd expect that they would be higher quality and
yeah,
probably faster than a huge do-it-all model. You know.
definitely. And we may, at least for now, we may be able to treat that as hyper specialization, right? Because it's not only specialized in translating, but also specialized in translating a specific field and so on, right?
Mm.
At
Oh
least
yeah,
for
for
now.
sure.
Maybe next year stuff will be different, but for now.
Yeah. And on your end, how did you see users, specifically translators, interact with AI, or interact or react with AI, since we've been looking at the evolution of things since 2023? What have you noticed yourself?
Oh, many things, many things. So there have been many different and interesting responses, reactions, and evolutions of those. Because well, we of course like everywhere else, we have early adopters. I think I'm staring at one right now. I have colleagues like, well, Nora Diaz or Florencia Russo, Josh Goldsmith, and other colleagues. Well, I'm naming colleagues who are more or less in the freelance sector. Of course, there are colleagues who are
Mm.
in big companies and so on that were implementing AI from the onset or even before. But the colleagues who started like you know full into all this, they have only evolved to know more, to share all that knowledge with a lot of colleagues, students, to inform and to provide awareness and so on. So I think that was really really great. Also, some colleagues at the beginning were completely suspicious of everything related to the
True.
AI and so on. And then with time, they started, giving it a try and trying to see what's out there and so on. And now are like super experts in the field. Also, for example, we were mentioning, well, both of us have been attending conferences and different spaces for colleagues and so on. And also the people that we saw at, early in the year, we saw later in the year, and we saw how they were, you know, coming to terms with stuff or discovering new features and so on. And I think that was also a really interesting part of it because it's, I mean, maybe it's a natural process, but also it's a an interesting thing, especially considering that uh, together with all these developments there was a huge wave of kind of hype or something from companies wanting to go full AI, and whoever is not playing that is out or something like that. So it was also good for the colleagues. And one last thing I want to mention is that I've also seen colleagues that from the beginning also starting to develop their own applications or platforms and so on.
Mm.
And nowadays you even see colleagues who are making their own, apps, widgets, or agents. We have been talking a little bit about agents earlier. Um, to do a lot of stuff. Some of them are translators, some are interpreters, or some are other linguist fields. But it's great to see that they go beyond, basic or intermediate usage to developing their own specific apps for their own specific needs. So that's great. And also, I would like to know what you saw, on your side.
Yeah, I think it's mostly been difficult for the major part of people. Um, I think we're getting to a point now where most of the translation world has understood that AI will be part of the translation landscape. Uh, and it's not going to work for everything for everybody, you know.
Yeah.
There are some languages that, you know, have very little text in existence, and big companies will probably not be interested into making AI products for these, unless some people locally decide to try and do things that work with AI for these. But you can expect that uh, translation work, interpretation, all that will have to rely on human work only for these languages. But for other languages that have a high amount of text, a big presence on the internet, these languages will be part of something that will have an AI step somewhere in most processes. So when a company, even some smaller agencies, will be looking at a pipeline of work, unless they're working on something that requires NDAs and cannot be connected to an outside resource that will read and write. So they probably wouldn't be able to use machine translation either in
Yep.
such a situation. So they wouldn't be using it. But for at large, AI is here to be used, and it's probably going to happen whether we like it or not. And I think that the profession is coming to terms with that. And so, it's a bit like when you're faced with something inevitable, like and you go through the grieving process. You have different steps, and in the end you have the step of acceptation. It's you've come to terms that it's going to happen. I think we're getting into that now. So that's one thing. and that's been hard emotionally. And another thing is when you want to when you decide that I'd like to know, I'd like to be interested in it, I think the technology is still very nebulous for people. It's something that they have a hard time deciphering. What can I do with it? You know, what are the benefits? How should I
Mm.
use it? And also that's part of, I think one of the reason is the hype. It's, you were mentioning that everybody is doing a small startup with it, and so you see brand names you've never seen everywhere with AI this, AI that, AI coffee machine, AI fridge, AI hair dryer, and so
Everything, AI, everything.
yeah, that's it. AI sandwich. So we're gonna see it everywhere. And so people are like, confused, and it's a bit irritating, when because you stamp AI on something, it's going to be better. No. So I think that's made that difficult for people to see. Okay, I'm a translator. What can I do with AI? So unless you're a technology enthusiast and you want to touch everything, and like you described before, people
Yep.
start. Oh, okay, I'm going to need something that does that to my file. Oh, I can ask. ChatGPT to write a small program that does that, and oh, okay, so I can use that. But for most people, that would be difficult, or they wouldn't know where to start. They wouldn't know how to write it to the AI so that the AI would do it. And I think that's the difficulty. But something that I think has been helping is what's available online. So many trainings, webinars, YouTube videos, stuff like that. This podcast, I hope, and yeah, and also conferences. If you go to a conference and you see people using AI in a reasonable and relatable manner, then you think, okay, maybe that's for me. And you start raising your hand, asking a question, maybe having a chat after the presentation, and I think that's good. I think that um, that's the way, that's probably what will help. People asking, seeing other people use it, and looking at the tools, because I think we need to see AI as tools. It's not a magic wand. It's a tool. And so once you start looking at it as a tool, and you're like, okay, how can I use it? Or you have a problem, and can I find a way to use that tool to solve my problem? So things like this. And I think that as people slowly uh, go into that sort of mindset, that that will that will help, and they will be able to leverage it for what is needed, and be able to excel at what they do best, which is producing nice text and accurate text.
Yeah, yeah, and see what really, how it really benefits instead of creating more work and more steps to do stuff, right?
Yeah,
um,
that's it.
yeah, Philippe, from what you've just said, we have like 3 or more new topics of conversation, but to stay on track, because it would be great to go back to some of the stuff you've just mentioned. Um, but to follow, what we've been discussing, and taking into consideration that we speak in terms that are very AI positive, like, uh, um, we kind of take for granted that people who are listening or who want to interact are in favor of using AI. It will
Yeah, not
be
necessarily. Yeah.
Ah, okay, but it would be also important to note that not everyone is using is using AI for everything, or that
Yeah.
it's not going to necessarily be present in our workflows, or that we need to use AI with all our clients, as an obligation.
Yeah. Completely.
Just
Yeah.
that.
Completely agree.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
an interesting question would be, how much should we know? How nerdy or how geeky or how tech savvy we need to be in order to deal with artificial intelligence, language models, new applications, developments, and platforms, and so on.